Guys, I want to thank you so much for tuning into my show, William Wallace for America. I say guys, I know there's girls out there too, but you know what? I just try to be all inclusive on this show because I'm looking for ways to bring people together. And I think the best way to bring people together is on smart policy that puts aside the ideologies and the narratives and does it in a way, again, that serves our community in a positive way. And with me today is someone who does exactly that, State Representative Mark Wright. Thank you so much for being on with me today. I really appreciate it.
You got it. Thanks for having me, William. I appreciate it.
I got interviews that are still up on my channel with you from before, but you know what? We got a session coming up next week. We're here at the Pelican Institute for Public Policy, creating some good policy for next week. What are you working on with Pelican Institute right now? What's some of your hot issues?
Hot issues. So as far as working directly with Pelican, Daniel and I have been working together, talking, working on plans and stuff related to the Constitution. I think we're going to end up doing a bill this session to go in that direction. I don't think I'll do the bill. I'll just help with it. But that is to me, that's the keystone of this whole thing. You get to that and do the right thing, it really opens up an opportunity to do real better policy and smart stuff and seriously improve Louisiana. I just love coming here. I mean, I've talked a few times, and we had a dinner last night. I mean, they just have great ideas here. I'm chairing the Republican delegation in the House this year, so I'm limited in what I do with other committees and all, but my goal has been to introduce all the new reps we have. We got a lot of new smart reps.
I saw
Great
that.
stuff.
I was going through the list of all the new reps, and of course I'm trying to figure out whose seat they took and whatnot.
But it's a different, I want to say quality, not that the others were bad in any way, it's a more cerebral thinking, but a determined group. I love it.
More passionate about ideas than ideologies?
Yeah, you could say that in some cases, but definitely more about a little more depth in the policy, determined to do it. But I think that's the thing. It's just sort of we're going to make things happen, and it's not just an emotional thing. We got some really smart people. And my point is just I'm trying to help them, fit in. I mean, it's just so much to take in when you first come in. And actually the special sessions are a blessing in that sense because you get a quick intro. It's fast. It's one subject, and you learn about how things work. And so we're going into a regular session. I mean, it was almost like we had two preseason games. We got the timing with the quarterback and the wide receivers and stuff. It's looking good. Of course, we got an incredible governor who wants to do big things, and I mean that's half the ball game right there in this city, at the Capitol. It's very hopeful.
And that's what I like about the Pelican Institute. Is that they're bringing ideas together in a fast-paced but effective way, kind of like you're talking about these special sessions. It's a way to everybody's getting geared up, and then I kind of it broke your concentration there, but you were
that's right.
I think you were kind of gearing up to what's next.
Well, I'll tell you what it is. I mean, to follow along with the sports metaphors. I mean, I've seen enough sports teams that were predicted on paper to win a championship, and that's where we are. With paper, you got to produce, right? So, I really do believe this could happen. But it's also, we got 2 years to really knock some things out. If we don't do it, shame on us, honestly.
Because this session, is it a fiscal session? This session is not a fiscal session.
Next year's fiscal.
So this year you got this session can make some good changes in policies that help bring the economy back, not fiscally speaking for the budget, but some key things that our state needs to be able to fix some stuff.
Right. So obviously we had a special with crime, and we've done the redistricting and a couple other things like party primaries. I think that was super important. That was helpful in the long run. But insurance is huge. School choice, ESAs is huge. There's a number of other issues, including the Constitution, which I mentioned to you. That's actually kind of the keystone in my book. You get that right, the other stuff makes it a lot easier. So that's huge. And the cool part has been the governor, coming in. It's tough, man. There's a lot coming at you, transitioning in. but we're pretty focused on big stuff. Like, you can count on them to be open to the idea of like going big, throwing deep kind of stuff.
Collectively speaking, we know the team wants a national championship.
Absolutely.
So this legislature wants a national championship. We want to put Louisiana back on the map. So and we keep kind of dancing around some of these things that are being worked on. What do you think are going to be the top 3 things that collectively speaking, this session, these legislators want to work on to get to that national championship, using the football analogy?
Well, right now, for this session, insurance is clearly on the monitor. I mean, crime was, so it was probably, tied for first, let's say, but crime's, I don't want to say done, but you hit most of it. So now insurance is the one thing that everybody wants to go at, because everybody's affected by it. I mean, premiums are through the roof. We know a lot why that is. And I feel like a lot of people see, listen, you can't fix that like you can cut a tax. You can try to make the environment more competitive. You are relying on reinsurance, which is like 60% of premiums. So, right. And that's out of London, that's Europe, offshore countries, and what I'm trying to tell you is they're not here, and all they care about is their money. That's fair. We're cool with profit. That's right. No big deal. But all they see is like 2-3 storms. What is it? I mean, insurance is a pure numbers, probability, statistical business. It's like, what's the chances of this happening again, and how much do I have to charge as a premium to cover it?
Right.
And that's what the models are based on recency, right? So there's only so much you can do. But look, we see Florida, almost the number one conservative model state out there, right, struggling with this.
Right.
They've got a lot more resources to throw at it, and they're still struggling with it. So some of this is dependent on us getting a couple of years without some hurricanes.
Is there a way to work with like the state of Florida and say, hey, look, we're going to bring in another state, in this negotiation process, and then maybe having 2 states going at the insurance companies, you've got, some bigger numbers to say, hey, we're going to work on this together, and then the insurance companies say, hey, look, this is a collaborative effort from, 2 states. A little more power, a little bit more muscle.
No, that's possible. I know there are some organizations, national or regional organizations, of the commissioners of insurance. So I gotta believe there's been conversations there, but that's not a bad idea. I mean, one of the issues that comes from insurance and risk and stuff is flood insurance. FEMA wants to raise premiums for that. To a certain extent, we subsidize our flood insurance. It's just that simple. The problem is it's all risk in one area. So there has been talk at the federal level of kind of changing that to sort of multi-issue things like earthquakes or whatever, so it broadens the risk. So it's not a bad idea at all.
How about they give it back to the private sector instead of keeping it a federal program?
Well, that's FEMA. No, that's FEMA. But I tell you what, that'll change premiums if it goes private, because I mean, the feds subsidize flood. I mean, you can see it when you pay it.
Yeah, and I know I get it. Rates would probably increase, but at the same rate, I'm a freedom liberty guy, and I talked about this. I did a podcast on this actually last night, where I talked about all these federal programs that are subsidized, while we get addicted to that, because wow, we get cheaper flood insurance as a result. Over 65, you get your health insurance paid for basically, or Medicaid for some people. And people get addicted to those programs. They forget about how to be self-sufficient, but as a result, the loss is freedom.
So no. All of that is absolutely true. But here's the real question as far as immediate direction, right? So if we didn't have it to begin with, you're right. You would not have seen the build out that you've seen on coastal and floodplains, right? Because that would have been a much bigger issue. You're paying a whole lot more.
Exactly.
So that's a good thing. The only thing is, like, once you've done it and you've got all these things there, like, how do you change it? I think if you immediately pull it away, it gets so disruptive for people. It's just, I mean, people would just walk out of homes.
Yeah, you could pull it away. But we got a little offside track.
Because if you can, just to your point, look, a general slow development there, I think, could go a long way, but I don't see that happening, unfortunately. That kind of policy, yeah.
So what else are we going to see in the legislature this year? Do you think that collectively everybody's passionate about?
Yeah, so insurance big. We're here at Pelican, and ESAs are big. We've been, kind of whittling at that for a few years now, but you really needed a governor to get behind it. We seem to have that. I don't want to speak for the government. I'm pretty confident he is, and that'll be a big step. That'll be a transition too, and we've seen wonderful, evidence of that working in other states. Florida's a big example, so that's huge. Obviously, I mentioned the Constitution. I'd probably be quieter, more technical, but I think more impactful in the long run for us to be able to do other things. It kind of enables us. I'm back to my regulation bills. Got a whole bunch of stuff coming. Can't wait to get into that. I know that's kind of geeky, but man, I see after 6 years of doing bills and trying to chop wood on it, kind of see some daylight, which is helpful. And I think people do not realize the impact that could have. Which is, I get it.
The ESAs?
No, the regulations.
The regulations.
Yeah, regulations. So like the Administrative Procedures Act. So when, we pass a law, we delegate authority, like so many other states, to the executive branch to make the rules. And unfortunately, those rules aren't always good. They don't have any kind of participation. And so we need to fix that. And actually, the big movement on it in my life, in my adult life, that I really started hooking in was when Trump became president and they did a regulatory review. But you're seeing other states, Idaho, Utah.
So they're talking just on a state level where where we start getting rid of some of these regulations that are inhibiting businesses and people from being able to prosper in the state.
Yeah. So here's the thing.
Example?
Yeah, absolutely. I came across this working on the maritime industry related to barges and testing water, ballast water, things like that. So legislature passes a law. They have a certain intent. Executive branch comes in and says, okay, we have to do this. And that you send something out to the public. This is the administrative procedures part that says, this is how we're going to regulate or implement this law. The problem is literally one word can triple a cost, can quadruple a cost. We saw that in water testing related to barges on the river. And the remedy to that is you have the engagement of the legislature, but the public. We do have a set of rules that produce that, but it's not transparent. It's kind of on the side. And it's not because people are trying to hide something from let's see if we can get away. You have the career bureaucrats that tend to not engage the industry as much and understand costs. I've found industries are willing to work, but it's it can take 20 years to understand a certain business. So God knows somebody working here in Baton Rouge for a department doesn't understand things as well. They're just going to throw it out there. You change some of that, it can do wonders. And what you're doing, it's like a death by 1,000 cuts. It's all these little things. So businesses have to spend a ton of money, time on all kinds of things with compliance. Well, you start freeing up time, you start freeing up money, and all of a sudden that goes into building the business or somebody's pockets and salary or building new equipment. And it really can lead to an explosion.
You touched on some things that I talked about recently on my show, which is the bureaucratic agencies. They're filled with people who get these jobs either at the top levels by appointments, from the administrations, and they tend to be more ideological, and you got the career bureaucrats that can't be fired, but are able to create rules and laws outside of the Constitution. And they do things more on an ideological manner, or somebody comes up with an idea that should be right, but they have no outside, street experience, like you mentioned. Those weren't your words, on what actually happens to the dollars, how the dollars get affected, how businesses get affected, or even how people get affected. And there's no connection there. Where it seems to me that what you're talking about is you're now as a legislature and bringing groups of the legislators together, looking at these regulations and how they're affecting businesses and people, and you're looking at ways to unravel these regulations in a way that still keep the same intent, whether it's environmental or whether it's safety, but at the same time reduce some of the cost on businesses and the burden on the people in those communities.
Absolutely. So the process or the dynamic you're talking about, I think, is more ideological at the federal level. I think at the state level, it's less so, and it's more about just a if you go read Ludwig von Mises' bureaucracy, or you read some of the things done in the Austrian school about regulations and bureaucracies and how they interact. It's more of a inertial thing. It's more like somebody's been trained in school to understand science. They get involved with policy, well-intentioned, but don't always understand there's a whole lot of opportunities to skin a cat. And the bigger thing is, in my mind, is that is a delegated power in a constitution. So the legislature actually could create rules if they want. Like we could just we could pass a law and say this is exactly how it's going to be enforced, but we don't. And no few legislatures do that, even at the federal level. So people think, oh, you're getting into the kitchen of the executive. No.
But these bureaucratic agencies become somewhat autonomous, and people just kind of like leave them alone because they're kind of doing their thing. But then you realize how much they're messing up in the process. But what I think is happening is even though there's separation, those federal agencies end up with the ability to pierce that 10th Amendment veil, so to speak, because they'll say, hey, we got this federal idea or regulation we came up with, and if the state adopts it, we got some federal money for you,
That's true.
If you adopt this law, and enforce it, we're going to give you $1 billion a year, federal money, free money. And the states go, wow, we'll bet another $1 billion for our thing. Well, of course we'll enforce that law. It's all well-intentioned, right? But what you guys are seeing now is those well-intentions are like, roads paved to, was it the road paved to hell?
Road paved to hell is with good intentions. Yeah, no, it's all part of that equation, no doubt.
Well, I'm glad that you got some eyes, with you on unraveling this. And, while we wrap it up, is there anything else that you think that people should watch out for that's coming up in this next session?
Yeah,
how they get involved?
Great question. Get involved. I don't want to say hold your reps' feet to the fire. I think you can have reps doing a lot of good things, but there needs to be engagement because, especially for the newer groups, you come in and you're fired, you're ready to go, fired up, ready to go, but you'll see local government or other interests sort of whittle away at some of that. And I mean, this is clearly a go big or go home moment for us, Louisiana. This session, next session, this term, we've got an opportunity. But like I said, unless you win the championship on the field, being on paper means nothing.
Like I said, the people of Louisiana ran Republican people for office, conservative values to put this group in office. It's just like you said, this has got to be the time they shine, or we're going to see the same Louisiana we had before.
I agree.
Representative Mark Wright, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Have a great day. I'm going to have you on during session, all right?
All right, sounds good.
Everybody, please share the interview.